My name is Jennifer. I work in the cleaning sector and am 39 years old. I am a 40-year-old lady who has been employed for over 20 years at a firm that offers office building cleaning services. I selected this line of work in order to help my ailing mother. I was reared in a single-parent household with my mother and sister. My mother was really sick at one time, and I had to drop out of technical school to take care of her. I am now really appreciative of my decision to become a cleaner after searching for a profession that would enable me to take care of my mother. The head of the firm and my senior co-workers are sympathetic to my plight and nickname me Jenny. My younger co-workers are likewise quite cute. I really believe that there isn't a better place for me to work. My sister was 19 and I was 25 when my mother died. As fall came to a close and winter arrived, she passed away. I took additional time off work since I was grieving the loss of my mother. However, the year-end cleaning season is when the business is busiest. My coworkers would still respond, "We'll wait until you are feeling better." We were grateful for their care. I would have preferred to remain at home. Although I had a sister to take care of, I truly wanted to follow in my mother's footsteps. I made the decision to keep working for my sister, who is always anxious, after we lost our mother too soon. She was a university student at the time, and I kept on giving her the help she required. As she advanced in her studies, I assisted her with the cost of her textbooks and provided a ride home when she arrived late. I gave her a suit to celebrate her landing a job. Despite having a meager salary, I made an effort to assume the position of our mother. My sister was unhappy with our living arrangement and outward appearance when our mother passed away, so she advised me to stop cleaning and look for a better career. Her remarks deeply wounded me, and at the time, I was emotionally incapable of considering changing jobs. But I always had the warm support of my coworkers at work. My sister later put a lot of effort into her job hunt and was eventually employed by a big corporation. This business is well known and frequently featured in online and television ads. Her initial pay was about double what I received. "Look, big sister, I surpassed you in just 1 month," she said, showing everyone with the excitement of a kid who has received a lot of Christmas presents. "Take a look at this pay stub. Isn't that incredible?" Big sister, you ought to acquire a decent career like mine and cease cleaning. It's not polite to say that. Although I truly enjoy my present position, the pay is obviously different. Even yet, I was sincerely glad that her efforts were appreciated. I sat in front of our mother's photo and expressed how my sister has become a respectable woman from the bottom of my heart. But over time, her actions at work led to issues. At work, she produced results, and she was proud of her boss's compliments. She received the opportunity to work on a big project shortly after joining, and I felt happy to be her sister. But every day she became more condescending toward others around her. I can manage the work, and I'm expected to perform well, but my colleagues' learning skills are a little inadequate. She said without hesitation, "I hate it when their shortcomings lower my evaluation." She appeared to be taking society and her job for granted. She may trip if this went on. I reprimanded her for her attitude as a result. Since everyone is starting from the same place, I don't think there are any significant differences among newbies. But with a snarl, my sister shot out, "Don't be so arrogant. You're only a cleaner with little education." "I understand that there isn't much difference in people's abilities because I have experience," I said irritably. "Really? Does your organization have any recent hires with college degrees? Go tell them they're squandering their lives before you lecture me." With a dismissive chuckle, my sister left for a drink. I was concerned that she would run into problems in the future. But her inflated sense of self-worth simply got greater. Her mentality became warped by a mistaken self-evaluation that began as a sense of superiority over me due to her larger wage. She told me anything she wanted to say. I initially dismissed it as enthusiasm for her new job, but polite cautions didn't change anything. I even tried giving her harsh reprimands, but sadly, nothing changed. It's possible that I managed my connection with my sister poorly, and I started to doubt myself. It has been years since then. I'm still employed as a cleaner. Although my sister's work appears to be doing well, her contemptuous demeanor has only become worse. She married her lover after moving in with him. He is a bothersome presence for me, and his personality is just as self-conscious as my sister's. I consider her spouse to be of a different generation because he is so young. "Are you really a cleaner?" was the first thing he said to me when we first met. "Yes, I am passionate about my job, and I enjoy it very much." "Really? However, isn't such work filthy? I really don't want to think about it. It must have an unpleasant odor." My sister then went on to say, "That is accurate. It is intolerable to even consider it. It's dirty, and it's a lousy, ugly work, that much is true. But there's no way to avoid it, is there? After all, she is a member of my family." Her statement stunned me so much that I can barely recall what transpired next. I shouted at my sister when he departed, "That's incredibly nasty. It can't be helped because I'm your family. What do you mean? You and he should both refrain from judging others based on their employment or money." My sister argued back in astonishment when I became irate, saying, "Shut up. You left the trade school and I received my university degree. In addition, he has a college degree. You are forced to accept that you make little money and settle for a lower-class job." My sister stormed away, and I sobbed in despair and fury. My mother's illness caused me to leave technical school. Despite being aware of this, my sister stated these things. Despite having a little wage, I was able to pay for my sister's schooling. I put a lot of effort into taking our mother's place. My interactions with my sister were the error. Her usage of the adjective ugly disturbed me as I peered into the mirror through tears. My sister's face looks like mine. Even if I'm not very attractive, I shouldn't be viewed as such. Maybe I haven't been paying much attention to how I look. Whether I changed and paid more attention to how I looked, I wonder whether she would see me differently. But no matter how much I clean up, my sister's personality won't alter. Her obsessive self-awareness has only increased after she married someone who shares her ideals. Despite talking to my coworkers, I feel like there is nothing further I can do to improve my connection with my sister. In the middle of this, my sister and her husband sent me a postcard. It read, "We're having a housewarming party." I had never heard of this before. It appears to be a detached home based on the address. I was a little disappointed. I would have congratulated her and assisted with the transfer if she had told me. After a while, I made the decision to give her a call. "Hello, I received your postcard." "Oh, you got it?" Over the phone, I could hear my sister's happy voice. "Notice that this home is detached. It's because I'm successful that we're youthful. Nobody else was capable of doing it. Yes, that's really great." Even though my sister was still boasting, I was moved by nostalgia and paid close attention to what she had to say. Later, I began discussing myself. "In fact, your organization's cleaning contract was just awarded to my company. We may occasionally cross paths." "Oh, that's fantastic. There aren't many opportunities to enter such a large structure outside of cleaning, are there?" That's where she ought to have stopped. "That's fantastic. In addition, I currently have a boyfriend." "Really?" My sister sounded taken aback. "He's older and very amazing, yes. I put a lot of effort into taking care of my skin after hearing what you had to say, and he fell in love with me right away." I made a joke. My sister then responded, "It's because of me, isn't it?" That is a significant accomplishment. She's not totally without merit, though. I would want to present him to you, by the way. He's excited to meet you, so have fun at the celebration, shall we? I'm looking forward to it. When I got to my sister's house on the day of the much-anticipated party, I could immediately hear the noises of celebration. Sadly, my partner was unable to attend, but when I informed them that I had arrived, my sister's once bright voice abruptly darkened as she exclaimed, "What? You came? Really? What had occurred?" I wondered. "You understand your own career, right? Regarding work? Concerning the cleaning task? I don't want someone as filthy as a cleaner in my tidy home since it's new. Not wanting cleaners in a new home and labeling them as filthy." I was unable to comprehend its logic. I lost all mental clarity. "You ought to be more taciturn under these circumstances, given your filthy work, don't you? Your coworkers must have the same opinion. Are you lacking in common sense? Are you not being impolite, sis?" I'm sorry. I could feel my wrath growing inside of me as it began to boil. Does a filthy job naturally make you hold back? Impolite? Do I have to say sorry? Absolutely not. Reaching my breaking point, I said loudly, "You despise people too much. It's too impolite. If it had only been about me, I might have put up with it. But to make fun of my coworkers as well? That couldn't be forgiven." I saw my sister wince at my firm position. She normally acts aggressively with quiet individuals, but when retaliated against, she becomes frightened. Do you honestly believe that judging someone based on their occupation is acceptable? It's you who lacks common sense the most. I'm sorry. What? What's causing your sudden rage? I will not pardon you. How did you turn into such a bad person? Mom would be really sad. You're garbage. Garbage. You are the garbage. Isn't your lover also trash? He must not be performing well. A typical individual would never date a cleaner. I wouldn't want to interact with someone that filthy if you weren't my biological sister. If we weren't related, I would have left you long ago. My line is that. I'm severing connections. Don't ever involve me again. All right then. Goodbye. Even though it was a childish argument, I was unable to handle it in a mature manner. I walked out of the room before my sister could finish her sentence. I had made the decision to distance myself from my sister. Even though she was my only sibling, I was at my breaking point. My sister doesn't treat me like a human because I work as a cleaner. Beyond the fact that we are sisters, our values are too different, so it would be best for us both to stop participating. It's all right. My sister is a grown-up already. Goodbye. I've resolved my emotions. It has been many months since I made the decision to break off my relationship with my sister. Coincidentally, I was given the task of cleaning the building where my sister works. It could have been the president showing consideration, but I was reluctant to depart. However, it's my policy to give my best to the task I'm assigned. Suppressing my feelings, I headed to my sister's company. The structure was very enormous and large, with such a wide space. I probably wouldn't run into my sister. Even if we did meet, she might not notice me. Thinking this made me feel a bit better. Pushing a cart loaded with cleaning supplies, I tried to focus on cleaning that afternoon. While mopping the floor, a group of about 5 people were talking while drinking canned coffee at a vending machine. I'm extremely sorry for the inconvenience. Please ponder more before you act. Given your length of service on this team, you ought to report and confer before it becomes an issue for everyone. Yes, I do comprehend. The same error has already occurred 3 times this quarter. I'm sorry. Everyone helped to make up for the mistake made by the person offering the apology. Well done. I deliberately avoided looking at them while I held that thought and carried on mopping. Some of your peers are section chiefs, and others are already team leaders. You ought to put in a little more effort. I'm sorry. Yes, she was receiving unpleasant remarks. It might be time to forgive her. I wanted to get past that bunch and move to the other side of the corridor. Afterward, they reprimanded the woman again and all returned to the office. I recognized a face as the group went by in front of me. It was my sister, indeed. It was my sister who received the reprimand for her error. "No way," I said to myself. My sister's face turned pale as she stared at me for a while. But she remained silent and hurried after her team as they departed. Throughout my job, I kept thinking about my sister. The sister, who should have been the most prestigious of her colleagues, instead appeared to be a liability to the business, abandoned. She appeared to be apologizing to people affected each time she made a mistake at work. I have seen several human interactions in a variety of settings via my profession as a cleaner. My instinct tells me that my sister's boasting about her excellence was only self-serving. Perhaps, as I had anticipated, her job was first going well. Despite her complacency, her co-workers outperformed her and took advantage of her. This was hardly unexpected given her patronizing demeanor. But I don't have to be concerned. My sister isn't going to depend on me anymore. We have broken our connections and are now strangers. While cleaning the lobby a few days after discovering this news, I ran across my sister once more. My sister and someone else emerged from the elevator. "My bad. I forgot to bring the paper bag with the samples. I'll go grab it, haha. Wait here, please." "I'll go. It's all right. In any case, I'm worthless. Take care of me when you are promoted again in exchange. I'm going to go grab it now." Apparently, her younger co-worker, the man enthusiastically boarded the elevator and returned to get the misplaced item. Nevertheless, she used to constantly insult me and assert her competence. I felt sorry for my sister as I watched her huddle in a corner of the foyer. One of my co-workers muttered, "Hey, isn't that your sister you talked about before?" while I was cleaning the leaves off a lobby plant. Yes, indeed, she appears to be making mistakes. Please keep quiet about it. Before heading back to their apartment, my colleague gave my sister a troubled glance. While I remained in the corner, my sister approached me furiously, as if disturbed by our empathetic stares. "Hey, tidy up." "What are you doing?" "I'm cleaning." "No, why are you here?" "Because it's my job." My sister's expression changed to one of rage as I gave her a chilly response. "You have no right to inform my spouse that I'm making a fool of myself at work. You get it, don't you?" She seemed to be using me as a vent for her work-related stress. My sister increased her voice, drawing the attention of others around us. Being aware of the people around me, I muttered softly, "You're drawing attention. Stop talking. You uneducated guy, don't boss me about." She couldn't help but notice the others watching. "Please keep it down." My sister yelled, "Don't touch me," as I reached for her hand. "You're filthy," as he firmly pushed my fingers away. She kept hurling obscenities as she hastily cleaned the place I touched. "Aren't you threatening to harm me? I take it you want money? What amount are you requesting? Dangers? Cash? What are you discussing?" Confused, I asked, "You understand? Don't discuss this with my spouse." "You fool!" she screamed. "Oh, I see. Do you feel ashamed of the numerous errors you make at work? Or is it a result of your sluggish job advancement? Which one would you prefer that I not bring up?" I retorted. "Both, obviously," said my sister. She appeared sincere in her fear that I would bring up her actions at work with her spouse. "By the way, are you also putting on a facade for your husband?" I asked in a provocative manner. "Stop talking," she shot back. "What can trash like you say?" Using such strong language, calling someone garbage. My sister persisted in insulting me without regard for other people's perceptions. She looks to be under a lot of stress because of the firm. Maybe she's trying to lighten her heart by making fun of me. "I am not your punching bag." A man's voice from behind cut in at that moment. "Hey, that's no way to treat a cleaner." "Quiet!" After reacting, my sister became aware of the chaos surrounding her. Glancing around, unable to stand her excessive rudeness any longer, a man from the crowd, an older man with gray hair and a nice outfit, stepped forward. His looks betrayed a high social standing. My sister felt agitated at the sight of the man. The man stood beside me and touched my back tenderly. You should refrain from using derogatory terms, such as labeling someone unclean or untalented. That is not acceptable. Please give her your apologies. I yelled back, "This is just a sibling argument. We were supposed to have cut off family ties, remember?" "Shut up," shot back my sister. She was tough with me, yet gentle with the gray-haired man. The man stepped in after observing this dual conduct. "If it's a family matter, then I am involved too." My sister was shocked and said, "What?" "It's good to meet you. I'm actually seeing your sister." The eyes of my sister grew wide. "I am a board member of your firm and the executive director of a linked business." It was regrettable that I was unable to introduce myself sooner, he added. What? My sister was unable to conceal her confusion. I mumbled, "Was there really a need to come out now?" after giving him a critical gaze. He answered, "Now is the only time," with a smile. With a terrified tone, my sister questioned, "Is that true?" Given that the individual in front of her was an executive in her organization, her response was expected. "That's accurate. I went with him to negotiate the cleaning contract for this building. When he handled the deal, he fell for me," I clarified. "No way," said my sister incredulously. "That's accurate. She explained everything in detail when the president was unable to do so during the contract signing. And I fell in love and asked her out," he said. The audience that had assembled in the foyer let forth a gasp of astonishment. My sister mumbled, "This is so embarrassing. I heard you said that no decent person would date a cleaner and that they must be up to no good." "No, that is not what I stated. In any case, you must express regret for the hurtful remarks you made to your sister before," he demanded adamantly. My sister was speechless with shock. "Are you the sister of Jenny?" "Please don't cause your sister undue concern," said my co-worker, who had been tidying the lobby. Co-workers gathered from other floors. As she apologized to me, my sister seemed worn out and totally alone. "I'm sorry," she said in a dejected whisper. She had lost the vibrancy and vigor in her voice. There was nothing but nothingness. My sister was later moved from the parent firm to a subsidiary's distant division. My boyfriend had nothing to do with this decision. My sister became agitated and began making a series of blunders at work after she was overheard disparaging me. This action was judged essential as her job status became precarious. It was, in effect, the end of her career. When my sister's husband found out, he turned to me in a desperate attempt to find a solution. "I take it you're seeing a director at my wife's business? How come you didn't inform me earlier? Could you please put my wife back in her previous role?" "Desperately," he begged. Regretfully, I replied with a remorseful, "I'm sorry." I didn't agree with his plea. They probably had to sell the new house they had built because they couldn't afford the mortgage with their lower income after the demotion. I am no longer involved in my sister's and her husband's later situation. In the meanwhile, I got married to my fiancé, and we're content in our brand new house. My on-site job has dropped, but I still run the cleaning company. That's because I became the cleaning company's president and took over its administration. I accepted the offered position as president because I love the organization where I have worked for so long, despite my numerous concerns and worry. I plan to continue working with pride at this cherished organization, regardless of what others may think.
I spent over a year abroad in search of excitement and employment. I rented out my condo to a friend during that period, with the perfect intention to resume my normal life once I returned. But in actuality, my flat has been empty for the past 6 months, since my friend who lived there got married and moved out. I thought I could finally unwind in my own place after a long travel, but my life soon took an unexpected turn. A strange pair of sneakers on the shoe rack was the first item that seemed strange. I didn't have such shabby shoes. Could my friend have left them behind? The bookcases in the living room were stocked with unfamiliar items, and a game system that I didn't possess was hooked up to the television. The table was covered with empty Coke cans and the petrified remains of nachos. "Welcome back, sis." As my younger sister strolled out coolly, as if she owned the home, Clarissa's voice sounded from the kitchen. "Why are you in this place? You're at my apartment, but why?" Jet lag made it difficult to absorb the scenario, but I inquired while attempting to remain composed. "Oh, did your parents not inform you? I'll be here for a long time." "It's temporary," Clara said, seemingly unconcerned. I scowled at her and let my luggage fall to the ground. "You must be joking with me. I live in this flat." Clarice gave a shrug. Well, Mom and Dad assured me that everything would be well during your extended absence. I assumed you wouldn't mind." Immediately, my blood pressure increased. "Did you think I wouldn't mind? That's your reason for moving into my flat without asking. How long do you intend to be here?" Clarice avoided looking at me and rubbed the back of her neck. "I haven't decided yet. Since I haven't had a job for a time, it will likely be till I get another one." I felt a flash of anger. In addition to my sister invading my personal space, my parents also took this choice without seeking my input. I took out my phone right away and dialed my mother. She responded after a few rings. "Hi, Audrey, welcome back. How did your flight go?" "Mom," I murmured, attempting to maintain a calm tone. "Did you know that Clarice is living in my apartment?" Mom paused for a second. "Yes, we did believe things would be all right. While you were away, she needed a place to stay. It's only short term." "You didn't ask for my permission." I lost my temper. "Avoid overreacting. She's your sister. Don't families support one another? Does being family mean you can ignore someone's boundaries?" Before I could say something I would later regret, I hung up and turned to face Clarice. "You need to leave by the end of today." Clarice appeared truly distressed. "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem." Clarice, however, did not move to go. Rather, she sat on the sofa as though it were her own house after beginning to make a sandwich in the kitchen. I had no idea what to do. Although I was unable to physically evict my sister, I refused to accept the status quo. For the first time in a year, I laid in bed that night and heard the sound of Clarice's video game coming from the living room. I had not anticipated returning home in this manner. It was unbelievable to me that my parents had given their approval. Their favorite kid, the one who could make errors and yet be forgiven, had always been Clarice. Clarice had been regarded as a particular member of our family since we were small. When Clarice fell and started crying at a sports day event, our parents waited until it was my turn to console her. No one congratulated me when I finished third in my race, which I ran alone. When Clarice failed an exam in middle school, our parents kindly told her, "You're just not good at studying," and arranged for a tutor for her. They told me, "You could have done better," and limited my extracurricular activities when I received an A. When Clarice and her friends went to the mall after curfew in high school, our parents chuckled and said, "Did you have fun?" I was punished for a week when I was just 5 minutes late. "She's learned her lesson," they said, forgiving her even when she used Dad's credit card without authorization. However, my stipend was cut when I purchased stationery. They encouraged Clarice when she repeated a year in college, stating she's finding her own path. They wrote it down as laziness when I had trouble finding a job. No one ever questioned this unwritten norm of uneven treatment. Cleaning up after my sister had taken up much of my life, but this time it had gone too far. I tried to speak with Clarice again the following morning, hoping she had cooled down and realized her mistake. "Clarice, when are you leaving?" "I don't know," she said, not even stopping her game. "We don't mind, Mom and Dad said. Since you're seldom here and I don't have a job, you don't really need the room, do you?" I was taken aback by her boldness. I vented to my fiancé, Glenn, and tried to persuade my parents to talk sense into Clarice's head that day. Despite his sympathy, Glenn made a useful recommendation. She might not have anywhere else to go. Establish a deadline and speak with your parents once more. A deadline? I let out a sigh. She shouldn't even be here. "Well, you can't just throw her out on the street," Glenn stated in a reasonable manner. Even though I knew I couldn't, I still wanted to throw everything Clarice owned out the window, even though I knew he was right. As time went on, it became evident that Clarice had no plans to leave anytime soon. I contacted my dad that night in the hopes that he would respond more logically than my mom had. "Regarding Clarice, Dad, I must have my own area. I live in this flat. Why wasn't I consulted?" He gave a direct answer. "Because we knew you'd say no." I couldn't speak. They proceeded despite knowing I would protest. I hung up and paced my flat in rage. Clarice had taken over my life and made my house a mess, and my parents didn't seem to understand that I should be angry since family helps each other. I couldn't finish this issue in a single day. Clarice didn't appear to be planning to leave, and she didn't try to find a job or a place to live. My family fully supported her. Even though this was just the beginning, I had a gut feeling that things wouldn't work out. Tension dominated the following few days. With Clarice still occupying the sofa like a permanent fixture, arguments and passive-aggressive interactions were the norm. Once my haven, the flat now seemed like a jail where I shared a cell with a rude roommate. Clarice always replied to my attempts to reason with her with a lack of interest or weak justifications. She would remark, "I'm looking for a job," while she browsed through her phone. Or she would say, "I have nowhere else to go," while lying on the couch. While I was at work, there were breadcrumbs all over the couches. Her days appeared to be spent relaxing at the apartment. I called Glenn every night to vent my anger. She isn't possible. She isn't even looking for a job or another place to live. Glenn let out a sigh. "I understand your frustration, Audrey, but have you and your parents really had a conversation to establish a clear deadline? They must realize how much this is impacting you." He was correct. Nothing was being resolved by phone conversations, and unless I adopted a more assertive position, this may turn into a permanent problem. Pulling myself together, I contacted my mother and suggested we have a family meeting. After some hesitation, she consented. My parents' residence is where we agreed to meet. The mood was strained when I got there. My mother smiled nervously as she greeted me. My dad had a grim look on his face, and as soon as she walked in, Clarice sat down in a chair and stared at her phone as though she had more important things to do. My mom whispered, "Audrey," and ushered me in. "Will you sit down? I brewed coffee." "I'm not in need of coffee." I started by describing how Clarice had taken over my place, saying, "We need to talk." However, my father crossed his arms and sat back in his chair. What is there to discuss? Family members are meant to support one another. Seeing the word "help" made me furious. "Aid? She's taking over my space without my consent and isn't even looking for another location. How does that help?" Clarice laughed. You're going overboard. It's not as though I've created a major mess. Observe the living area. It's a dump, I fired back. My mother interjected, "That's enough, Audrey," in a cool but forceful voice. Clarice is now going through a difficult period. Rent is really high, and she lost her job. You must be able to comprehend that. Maybe I could have understood if someone had asked me. Unable to control my rage, I snapped. Instead, you decided she could live in my apartment without even consulting me, as if my opinion didn't matter. There was a long pause. My dad cleared his throat, and my mom looked at him. You weren't present, Audrey. Should we have allowed her to become homeless? I pointed to their roomy home. Why can't she move back here? At last, Clarice raised her head from her phone. I need to stay close to the city to find a job. Brilliant idea, I remarked sarcastically. However, do you genuinely have a plan? Do you intend to squat in my flat indefinitely, or are you even looking for work? Clara said, I'm thinking about it, averting my eyes. I turned to face my parents and stated, that's not good enough. Let's establish a deadline if this is just meant to be temporary. 2 weeks, that ought to be sufficient. Mom seemed surprised. Audrey, be reasonable. No, Mother. All along, I've been sensible. I'm tired of being walked all over my flat. My dad held out his hand as my mom opened her mouth to argue. He curtly answered, fine, if that's how you feel. 2 weeks it is. My mother seems taken aback. Clarice cocked an incredulous head. Dad, what did you just say? 2 weeks, he said once again. My dad eventually siding with me left me speechless, but Clarice appeared to have been deceived. She murmured, this is unbelievable, picked up her phone, and walked out of the room with a stomp. My mother let out a long sigh and scratched her temples. Audrey, was this really necessary? Yes, I firmly said. All I want is my privacy restored. I'm not the villain because of it. The stillness weighed heavy between us, and my mother remained silent. I felt guilty in part. She was obviously trying to assist Clarice, but I also felt a spark of optimism for the first time in days. I had the impression that I could influence the situation to some extent. I departed early for work the next morning. Clara sent me a message at around noon, saying, you didn't have to corner me like that. I appreciate you making me feel so bad. I didn't respond. I had no intention of praising her or provoking another dispute. I went on a business trip for the following several days and didn't check on the unit. After a few days, I came home and met Julia, my neighbor in the hallway. She gave me a cordial greeting, but there was a tinge of interest in her voice. So your sister is staying with you? She remarked nonchalantly. Yes, I curtly said. I had no desire to explain. Julia cocked her head in an inquisitive manner. It's been quite lively over there, lots of people coming and going. What do you mean? You know, late-night gatherings with friends, loud music playing. My stomach turned over at what she said. How could my neighbor be more aware than I was of what was going on in my apartment? And on top of that, Julia went on, I've noticed some suspicious people coming in and out recently. Straight to Clarice's room, I marched and knocked. Now give an explanation. What's happening? She retorted fiercely, what are you talking about? I heard from the neighbor you've been having loud parties late at night with lots of people. They're only buddies visiting. It's not a huge concern. Not a huge deal. This is not your social center. It's my home. You'll be out before the 2 weeks are out if this keeps up. After muttering something under her breath, Clarice hurried to the restroom and slammed the door. I stood in the living room, shaking with rage. I was prepared to respect the decision made at the family meeting if she just played video games while lounging on the couch. However, things were getting far worse than I had expected. When Julia knocked on my door again one evening, it was the true turning moment. There was a mixture of doubt and concern on her face. After looking over her shoulder, she lowered her voice and said, "Audrey, I wasn't sure if I should say this, but I saw your sister meeting some suspicious people in the parking lot." A shiver of fear went through me. Julia went on. I watched from a distance because I was fascinated. She appeared to be trading something with them and was carrying a large amount of cash. "Are you familiar with this?" I started looking around the extra room Clarice was staying in with shaking hands. It was just clothing and various objects, but I discovered a lockable metal box below a stack of clothing. It was little but weighty, and my suspicions were further heightened by the fact that it was locked. I thought that opening the box would be inappropriate as I gazed at it, but I couldn't help but want to find out what Clarice was concealing since I was sick of her lies. I decided and started looking for the key. I eventually located it, snatched up the package, and opened it. I felt a rush of betrayal, profound anguish, and revelation as soon as I opened the box. It was the worst thing that could happen. Silently, I had dreamed. I put the box back in its original location. My thoughts were racing. This was more than simply an unwelcome home visitor. I may potentially be held accountable if Clarice engaged in unlawful activity, particularly if she used my flat as a base. I decided to face her the following morning. She looked up disinterestedly from her cereal as I confronted her in the kitchen. Demanding, "Explain the box," her spoon stopped in mid-stride. "Of what box?" she inquired. "The metal box hidden under your clothes." "Oh, that," she said, slightly increasing her voice. "I'm just holding it for a friend." I laughed resentfully. Are you even aware of how absurd that justification sounds? Why would they entrust you with money and drugs? And who is this friend? Clarice remained silent. Like a toddler caught taking cookies from the jar, she gazed at the floor. Of course, I answered in a chilly tone. "You must go before the weekend. You're not going to stay here for another minute, regardless of where you go." "Audrey, can't you calm down a little?" I forcefully interrupted her, saying, "I'm setting boundaries and enforcing them. There are no second chances." I was aware that I was correct. I could no longer tolerate Clarice's actions since she had gone too far. However, a tiny part of me was torn. Even though I detested what she did, I didn't want to entirely leave her because she was family. A few days later, things took a surprising turn. There was a knock on the door when I was seated in the living room. Daniel, Clarice's ex-boyfriend, was standing there when I opened it. He said, "It's about Clarice," with a serious expression. "I thought I should warn you." His tone was solemn as he met my gaze directly. It seems that Clarice was purchasing more than simply medicines. Additionally, she had taken out a sizable loan from some risky individuals. They will pursue her and anybody associated with her if she does not repay them promptly. My blood became chilly. What do you mean by anyone connected to her? "They know she's staying here, Audrey," Daniel said, his face hardening. "They will pursue you if they are unable to locate her." I had trouble breathing for a while. Clarice's carelessness was no longer the only issue. My family and anybody else close to her may be affected by this perilous scenario that has gotten out of hand. I saw now how grave the danger was. Why am I being dragged into this? As I talked, I could feel my voice faltering. I was overcome with rage and terror for hours following Daniel's visit. It seemed like I was living on top of a ticking time bomb, even though I believed my relationship with Clarice had always been tense. If Daniel was telling the truth, and I had no reason to question him, then I was in risk just by having Clarice live with me. My annoyance at her freeloading now seemed little in comparison to the nagging worry that was growing inside of me. I approached Clarice as soon as she entered the room that evening. "We must speak." "Now," she said, averting my eyes. "Now." "It's not that serious." "Not that serious?" I said it again. Something broke inside of me. I was at my breaking point at that point. I took out my phone and started composing a tweet just in front of her. "I want to talk to you about family." After residing abroad, I returned home to discover my sister squatting in my flat without authorization. I was not consulted when my parents made this decision. Betrayal of family. No limits. Clarice turned pale when she saw what I was doing. "What are you doing?" I brushed her off and kept typing. "My sister is interacting with dubious individuals and engaging in unlawful activity from my house. Knowing this, my parents put her convenience ahead of my security. Is this the definition of familial loyalty? Toxic family. Mysteries among the family." Nearly instantly, the post became viral, and support messages and answers poured in. "Dad, Audrey's exposing us on social media." Clarice contacted him urgently, shouting into the phone. My mom's name appeared on my phone a few minutes later, but I purposefully ignored her call. Instead, I put up a different post. To what extent can the statement, "because we're family," justify injustice? My family put my life in jeopardy and accepted it as the usual. I was not going to remain silent any longer. Liberating oneself from poison. The truth about family. People shared their own similar stories, and the post received hundreds of likes and comments in a matter of hours. Numerous others who were struggling with family matters found a voice in my narrative. My father messaged me the next morning, saying, "I noticed your posts." My coworkers are also contacting me. "Take them out right now." His authoritative tone just made me more irate. I reopened social media and composed an in-depth piece. I recalled how I was supposed to persevere and make sacrifices, but Clarice had always been given preference. I described the existing state of affairs as evidence that nothing had changed. My friends supported me by extensively sharing my posts. My parents' acquaintances even contacted me to offer their shock and condolences. My mother phoned me crying, "How could you do this, airing our family's dirty laundry?" "Mom, the shame isn't in exposing the truth. It's in behaving this way in the first place," I said with firmness. She couldn't speak. Despite his concerns about the consequences, Glenn supported my choice. "Sometimes exposing the truth is the first step toward real change," he stated. My post received more responses from the public than I had anticipated. People who had experienced similar familial pressures wrote to me to express their gratitude for my courage. My post served as a little flame, bringing attention to the less positive facets of familial relationships. Above all, my family was affected by what I did. My father started thinking about their actions for the first time since he was worried about his image in the workplace. My mother started to understand that she needed to reevaluate her connection with me after being rattled by her friends' comments. Clarice fled the apartment before the weekend arrived because she could no longer stand the increasing criticism that was pouring into her social media accounts. She was obviously unable to remain comfortably in the wake of everything that had transpired. I went to the police when she moved out. Clarice and the illicit acts of the people she had been hanging out with were reported by me. She hasn't been caught yet, but it's probably only a matter of time. Her precise whereabouts is still unknown. I've discovered that sometimes speaking the truth is the best way to exact revenge. I'm done keeping quiet to preserve my family's reputation. Family is important, but only when there is mutual respect for each other's boundaries. I said in my final post. You are not alone if you are reading this and going through a similar ordeal. The reality of family, the beginning of transformation. I learned a lot about my connection with my family from this event. Sometimes the most difficult choices are the correct ones to make, and there are instances when attempting to assist individuals you care about might put you in danger.